The Galactic Empire ruled the stars like it owned the light itself. Worlds bowed, fleets obeyed, and no one dared to question its command. For thousands of years, its flag waved over every planet worth claiming. The Emperor sat on a throne of light, surrounded by endless fleets and loyal governors. No one remembered the time before the Empire. No one imagined it could ever end. But far beyond the edges of the mapped stars, something moved. It started as a whisper across deep space frequencies, faint broken signals that did not match any known language or code. At first, the Empire's scientists ignored them, thinking they were old beacons or ghost transmissions. But the signal grew stronger each day. The energy pattern was stable, structured, and disturbingly familiar. It came from beyond the Orion Belt, a place long believed empty. The Empire dispatched a small scout group to investigate. The commander, Captain Verrill, laughed at the idea of danger. "Nothing exists out there," he said. "Only dust and dead worlds." The fleet of 5 sleek cruisers jumped into the darkness, confident in their power. But the further they went, the quieter the stars became. No signals, no radiation, no life, only silence. Then the first cruiser disappeared. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. No explosion, no distress call, just gone. The remaining ships spread out, scanning every direction, but their systems flickered and glitched. Strange static filled their communication channels. Then, through the interference, a voice spoke. "This sector belongs to Earth Command." The words were calm, old, and human. Every Imperial officer froze. The record said humanity had vanished ages ago, burned out in its own wars, consumed by greed and fire. The Empire had even used their ruins as proof that chaos always destroys itself. But this voice was not an echo. It was alive. A massive shadow appeared ahead of the remaining cruisers. It was a ship, black, silent, and larger than any Imperial dreadnought. Its hull absorbed light, its surface marked by glowing amber lines that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Scanners couldn't read its composition. Every Imperial weapon system failed to lock on. Captain Verrill shouted orders, but his voice cracked. The comms went dead. The unknown ship didn't attack. It just drifted closer. When it passed, every Imperial system shut down. Engines died, lights faded, and power drained away. Then the same voice spoke again, this time across every channel in the fleet. "You claimed dominion over the stars, yet you forgot who lit them first." The shadow moved on, leaving the cruisers floating dead in the dark. Hours later, the Imperial Command Center received a single burst transmission from Verrill's ship before it vanished from all networks. It contained only one word: humanity. The Emperor demanded answers. He gathered his highest admirals, showing them the transmission. Most called it a hoax. Others whispered that humanity was just a myth told to frighten young soldiers. But the energy readings were real. The signature matched no known drive or power system. 3 days later, colonies near the edge of the Orion Belt reported new anomalies. Massive ships appearing and disappearing without entering hyperspace. Satellites recorded faint images before being blinded by electromagnetic surges. The shapes were enormous, angular designs, black hulls lined with golden energy veins. Every report mentioned one clear symbol on the largest ship's surface: a blue and white insignia depicting a globe surrounded by laurel leaves, Earth. Panic began to spread inside the Empire's core worlds. Rumors flooded the networks: humans returning from the dark, ancient weapons reawakening, fleets rising from forgotten wars. The Emperor ordered silence and declared all information classified. But soldiers talked and fear traveled faster than any command. On the 5th day, the human fleet appeared openly. Dozens of ships emerged near an Imperial mining world. They didn't warp in. They simply appeared, bending light as they moved. Imperial defense systems locked on, but nothing fired. The ships just floated, silent, waiting. Then one of them sent a message in pure Terran English, translated automatically into Imperial speech. "This is Earth Fleet Command. We are not your subjects. We are not your myths. We have returned." The message repeated across every known Imperial channel. The Empire's fleet scrambled, but the humans didn't attack. They didn't need to. Every Imperial system that tried to analyze them simply failed. Their technology was beyond understanding. Across the galaxy, ordinary citizens looked up at their skies and saw the same vision. Dark triangular silhouettes glowing faintly with gold light, drifting silently among the stars. The Empire had claimed eternal rule, but now, something greater had returned. In the Emperor's Hall, A single line from an old archive replayed endlessly in his mind. When humanity returns, the galaxy will remember why it once feared the name of Earth. Outside, the stars flickered one by one as the Terran fleet moved closer. And in that silence, the Empire's illusion of control began to die. Humanity was home. The Empire's high command had gone silent. Every screen in the capital displayed the same frozen image, the shadow of a colossal human ship drifting above Vetra 9. The Emperor sat still on his throne, the gold reflections of the holoscreens trembling on his hands. He had heard of powerful civilizations, but nothing in history described this. One ship had frozen an entire defense grid. Across the Empire, the story spread faster than the officials could contain it. Soldiers whispered about the return of Earth. Merchants said they saw fleets sliding through space without engines. Children drew black triangles in the dust and called them ghost ships. In a galaxy built on fear and obedience, something older and greater had stolen everyone's attention. In a command bunker on Vetra 9, Commander Saren watched the silent ship hanging above the clouds. His sensors were still useless. Every wave of interference seemed deliberate, like the ship was listening to them. He ordered a fighter wing to approach and test communication. The small ships rose into the upper atmosphere, engines roaring. Then mid-flight, their systems blinked out one by one. No explosions, no fire, just absence. Saren clenched his jaw. Whatever was up there was playing with them. On the 7th hour of the standoff, the human ship moved for the first time. Slowly, it turned until its front section faced the Imperial fleet. Its hull glowed faintly, patterns shifting like flowing rivers of light. The Empire's flagship opened a hail channel. "Identify yourself," the Admiral barked. Static answered first, then a voice, soft, male, confident. "We asked once. You didn't listen. This galaxy was never yours." Before the Admiral could respond, all Imperial ships lost gravity for exactly 7 seconds. Weapons went offline. When power returned, a new mark appeared on every system log. A simple message. "Terran Command acknowledges your presence." The Empire panicked. Fleet reinforcements were sent from nearby sectors. Hundreds of warships formed around Vetra 9, ready for battle. The human ship didn't move. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal under the light of 2 suns. Admiral Kivar, the Empire's finest strategist, prepared the first strike. He smiled coldly. One relic cannot stand against an empire. But as he gave the command to fire, space around the human ship rippled. One by one, other dark shapes appeared, sleek, massive, and silent. 50, then 100, then more than 1,000. They formed a perfect formation. Every ship equidistant, every engine dark. No radiation, no hyperspace trails. Just arrival, effortless and absolute. The Empire's confidence cracked. Even the AI cores couldn't calculate the fleet's numbers fast enough. Kevar's bridge fell into stunned silence. He whispered, "They were hiding them. All this time." On the outer rim, miners on remote stations saw the same sight, stars vanishing behind giant human warships. Each vessel bore a different insignia. Sol Fleet, Earth Command, Terran Defense, Arc Division. The names humans once used before they vanished. These weren't new creations. They were survivors, ships built in the forgotten wars of Earth, now reborn. Messages poured into the Imperial network. The humans weren't broadcasting demands. They weren't declaring war. They simply transmitted coordinates, planet after planet that once belonged to them. And with each signal came a single phrase: "We are reclaiming what we left behind." The Emperor ordered his generals to retaliate, but his council hesitated. One scientist spoke quietly. "They could have destroyed us already." The words echoed across the chamber. Everyone knew it was true. If these humans had the technology to appear without hyperspace, to disable fleets with a pulse, what else could they do? On a distant moon, a young Imperial officer named Rin, the same one who intercepted the first human transmission, sat in a dark observation room watching the footage. She felt no hate, only awe. The ships were beautiful, designed for purpose, not pride. She whispered to herself, "They're not here to conquer, they're here to remind us." Meanwhile, aboard the human flagship Aegis, Captain Marcus Hale stood at the bridge, surrounded by silent officers. The stars stretched before them, each one a memory of a war long past. "They still think they rule," he said quietly. "Let them believe for one more day." His second officer nodded. And then, Hale looked at the holographic map of the galaxy. filled with Imperial markers. Then we show them what humanity learned while they slept. As the fleets aligned, the Empire's communication grid began to fail. Not from attack, but from overload. Too many signals, too much data. Old Imperial archives unlocked themselves, revealing classified history. The truth spread like wildfire. The Empire had been built on stolen human technology. The founders had used remnants of Terran ships after Earth's collapse. The mighty Imperial drive came from Earth engines. Their entire civilization stood on the bones of humanity. The Emperor realized the weight of his mistake. His people hadn't surpassed humanity. They had inherited its leftovers. And now the creators had returned. At the edge of the capital system, long-range sensors detected movement. The stars shimmered again. More human fleets emerged, thousands this time spanning the horizon. No sound, no war cry, just presence. The kind that silenced every world that saw it. And in that stillness, the Empire's greatest truth surfaced. Not fear of death, but the realization that the stars themselves had never belonged to them. They were only borrowing the light. The humans had come home, and the galaxy was about to remember who truly ruled. The stars' panic moved through the Empire like a living storm. Reports from every sector flooded the central command. Communications blackouts, vanished patrols, planets losing contact, and fleets refusing to respond. The Emperor's orders came too late. What began as an isolated incident at Vetra 9 had spread across half the frontier. Humanity's fleet was everywhere and nowhere, moving faster than sensors could track, striking without weapons, changing the shape of space itself. On the surface of the capital world, the sky itself had changed color. Strange rings shimmered at night, faint blue arcs of light stretching across the heavens. Some called them portals. Others said they were warnings. The Imperial scientists were terrified. Their instruments couldn't explain them. The power readings were impossible. It was as if the laws of physics bent whenever the human ships appeared. In the High Council chamber, Admiral Kivar stood before the Emperor with sweat on his brow. "Your Majesty," he began, his voice unsteady, "their ships don't use hyperspace lanes. They fold space itself. They don't travel through the stars. They reshape them." The Emperor's eyes were cold. "You're saying they are gods?" Kivar hesitated. "No, sire, but they have become something close." The chamber fell into silence. The council members shifted uneasily. For the first time in recorded history, the Empire didn't know what to do. Far away on the bridge of the Aegis, Captain Marcus Hale watched a holographic projection of the Empire's borders collapsing like dominoes. Entire sectors were turning dark, not from destruction, but from surrender. Hale spoke softly. "They still don't understand. We're not here to destroy them." His second officer, Commander Alara Voss, folded her arms. "Then what are we here for, sir?" Hale's eyes never left the map. "To remind them what it means to earn the stars." On the imperial world of Serath, a fleet of 200 warships assembled for what they called Operation Dawnstrike. It was meant to be the Empire's first counterattack. Admiral Kivar had warned against it, but the Emperor demanded results. The operation lasted 17 minutes. When the human fleet arrived, it didn't fire a single shot. The Imperial ships simply lost power one after another, drifting helplessly. Then a pulse of white light rippled across the system, erasing every targeting array and wiping their weapon codes clean. When the Imperial fleet regained control, every ship's hull bore a single burned mark, a circle with a cross inside. Humanity's symbol for Earth Command. The message was clear. They could destroy them at will, but they chose not to. In the following days, human fleets began appearing in orbit above key planets. They stayed silent, hovering like watchers. Citizens gathered in the streets to stare at the dark triangles that blocked out the stars. Some called them monsters. Others called them angels. Many began questioning the Empire's lies. On Vetra 9, Commander Saren watched from his bunker as the Aegis returned. The ship drifted low through the clouds, and its presence made the entire horizon tremble. He remembered the voice that spoke before. Calm, human, unshaken. He had expected fire and death. Instead, the ship simply hovered there, silent. Then a beacon beam shone from its hull, projecting a message across the colony. "Do not fear. The age of the Empire is over. The age of mankind returns." Saren fell to his knees. He was a soldier of the Empire, but deep inside, the words stirred something older, a buried memory of stories his grandfather once told, of humans who built cities among the stars, who vanished before their time. The next morning, The Aegis transmitted a universal declaration to every world under imperial control. It was short, almost poetic. We are the children of Earth. We came from the dust and returned to the void. You built your empire on our silence. We have come not to conquer, but to reclaim the truth. The Empire tried to block the signal, but it was useless. The words echoed across every channel, every device, every world. Even the Emperor heard them. He sat alone in his vast throne room, watching the stars fade behind the palace's transparent walls. For the first time he saw them not as jewels of conquest, but as eyes, silent and judging. He whispered to himself, "How did we forget them?" In a secret archive deep below the palace, historians uncovered ancient records that had been locked away for centuries. They revealed the truth. The Empire's founders were human. After Earth's collapse, survivors fled and formed the first colonies that later evolved into the Empire. Over time, the truth was erased, rewritten, and twisted into legend. Humanity hadn't disappeared. It had been buried under its own legacy. As the truth spread, revolts began, not violent but peaceful. Worlds started refusing imperial taxes, removing banners calling themselves free colonies. The military could not contain them all. The Emperor watched his empire crumble not from battle but from belief. Meanwhile, the Aegis fleet gathered near the galactic center. Captain Hale looked at the massive superstructure ahead, an ancient Terran construct hidden inside a nebula. Its hull glowed faintly with the same golden veins seen on every human ship. It was Earth's last great ark, Project Eternum, a vessel said to hold the memory of the entire human race. Ilara Voss stood beside him. "We could end it now, Captain. A single command and their empire would fall forever." Hale shook his head. "We don't need to destroy them. We need to make them remember who gave them the stars." As the Aegis activated its beacon, light spread across the nebula, bright enough to be seen from half the galaxy. Every Imperial ship, station, and colony received one final message. This is not war. This is remembrance. Humanity has returned. In the following hours, the Empire's fleets powered down one by one, not by force but by choice. Captains stood at their bridges and saluted the human ships passing by. Across the galaxy, a silence deeper than any battle settled. The empire that once ruled 1,000 suns was now facing something far greater than defeat. It was facing the truth of its own origin. And somewhere beyond the stars, on a forgotten world covered in clouds, a voice whispered into the void, "Welcome home, humanity." The dawn of a new age had begun. The galaxy had not seen peace in centuries, yet now it stood silent. The human fleet no longer moved from world to world, it simply watched. Hundreds of their dark ships hovered above major imperial planets, their hulls glowing faintly with golden veins of energy, like ancient guardians returned to judge their children. The Empire's voice, once loud and commanding, had become a whisper. Its fleets no longer patrolled the borders. Its admirals no longer spoke with certainty. The people had begun to ask questions the Emperor could not answer. On the capital world of Solara Prime, crowds filled the streets every night, staring at the giant human ship that floated beyond the atmosphere. It was larger than any imperial city, its surface alive with moving lights that formed strange symbols, old human languages that no one could read. Some believed the humans were preparing to attack. Others said they were waiting for something. The Emperor sat in his throne room, surrounded by silence. The council had stopped meeting. The ministers had stopped obeying. He stared at the hollow map of the galaxy and saw that the color of his empire, once bright imperial blue, had dimmed to gray. Every world that had declared independence glowed faintly with a new light, a small golden insignia, the mark of Earth Command. He slammed his fist against the console. "They think they can take everything we built," he hissed. A quiet voice came from the shadows. It was Rin, the young officer who had first intercepted the human transmission weeks ago. She had been summoned directly by the Emperor himself. "With respect, Your Majesty," she said softly, "they're not taking anything. They're reminding us where it came from." The Emperor turned toward her, his face pale with rage. "You speak like them. Do you know what you're saying?" Rin did not flinch. "Yes, I've seen their ships up close. They don't conquer. They restore. The colonies that surrendered are not enslaved, they're free. No taxes, no occupation, just silence and order." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Order without control is chaos." Rin shook her head. "No, Majesty. It's peace. That word hung in the air like something foreign, almost forbidden. Meanwhile, aboard the Aegis, Captain Marcus Hale stood before a vast window, watching the soft blue glow of Solara Prime far below. The fleet had received no resistance in days. The Empire was collapsing under its own weight, without a single human shot fired. "They still think this is about revenge," he murmured. Commander Ilara Voss joined him, her reflection shimmering in the glass. "If not revenge, then what? Why show them mercy? They used our world as fuel for their rise." Hale turned to her. "Mercy isn't weakness. It's a reminder of who we were before we burned." He looked down at a holographic display showing thousands of human ships across the Empire's space. "We left this galaxy in ashes once. We won't do it again." A new transmission arrived from the Terran High Council, deep within the fleet's command core. The voice was synthetic, smooth, and ancient. "Phase 2 may begin when readiness is confirmed." Ilara frowned. "Phase 2? What's that supposed to mean?" Hale didn't answer immediately. He had read the old archives. The humans who left Earth centuries ago had built plans upon plans. "Phase 1 was remembrance," he said quietly. "Phase 2 is rebuilding." Across the Empire's former colonies, humans began landing. They walked among alien cities, silent and calm, wearing silver exosuits that shimmered under the light. They didn't act like invaders. They repaired machines, restored power, even healed wounded civilians. On Vetra 9, Commander Saren watched as Terran engineers rebuilt the colony's failing atmosphere filters in hours. "They fix what we broke," he whispered, humbled. The people began to speak of the humans differently. They were no longer ghosts or myths. They were saviors, builders who had returned to mend what the Empire had forgotten. Children began wearing pendants shaped like the Earth symbol. Merchants displayed Terran banners beside their own. The idea spread faster than the Empire could suppress it. Humanity wasn't the enemy. It was the origin, but not everyone accepted it. Deep within the Imperial military, a secret faction was forming. Some admirals believed the humans were only pretending to show mercy. They called themselves the Eternal Legion. Their leader, Admiral Kevar, had disappeared after the defeat at Sarath. Now he resurfaced in a hidden asteroid base, commanding the last loyal fleets. "They took our pride," he told his followers, "but not our fire. If they want to rebuild, we'll remind them what it means to bleed." Kevar's fleet began raiding border systems, striking both human and independent colonies. He wanted to provoke a response to make the humans reveal their full strength. His ships carried stolen technology, reverse-engineered from Terran wrecks centuries ago. They were faster, meaner, and built to die fighting. The Aegis intercepted the first report of Kevar's rebellion. Hale watched the data appear, burned colonies, destroyed settlements, and Imperial insignias reappearing. He sighed deeply. "He's trying to wake the monster he doesn't understand." Ilara's voice was sharp. "We can end this now. One strike and the rebellion dies." But Hale shook his head. "If we strike first, the galaxy will see us as conquerors again. We need them to see the truth, that we don't rule by fear." Ilara frowned. "And if they don't understand? Then we show them what it means to be human," he said quietly. The fleet moved toward the outer rim, their massive shadows gliding through the void like silent titans. Kevar's forces waited, desperate for a fight. The Empire's last breath was ready to scream into the dark. On Solara Prime, Rin stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing horizon. The stars above pulsed faintly as the human ships aligned in formation. She felt the weight of what was coming, not an invasion but a reckoning of truth. For the first time in her life, she didn't fear the silence of the void. It felt right. In the stillness, a whisper carried across the sky from the human flagship, translated into every tongue. "You built empires on our ruins. You ruled with our machines. You forgot your makers. We are here to remember you." And as those words spread, every world in the galaxy held its breath. The final meeting between humanity and the last remains of the Empire was about to begin. The stars trembled, waiting. The stars over the outer rim glowed like faint embers, quiet and distant, but beneath that calm. Two fleets faced each other, one ancient and patient, the other desperate and burning with pride. The human fleet hung in the void like a wall of black glass, silent and flawless. In contrast, the Imperial remnants under Admiral Kevar flickered with unstable energy, engines roaring, weapons charged, crews trembling. Between them stretched an ocean of empty space, vast enough to fit 1,000 worlds, yet filled with tension thick enough to break the breath of any who watched. On board the human flagship Aegis, Captain Marcus Hale stood still, hands clasped behind his back. The holo display shimmered before him, showing Kavar's formation spreading across the system. "He's coming," Commander Ilara Voss said quietly. Sensors showed 22 dreadnoughts, 100 escorts, and 3 siege carriers. Hale's eyes didn't move from the display. "He's bluffing," he said calmly. "He doesn't want victory. He wants a memory of power before it dies." Ilara frowned. "A memory can still kill." Hale nodded slightly. "So can arrogance." Across the void, Admiral Kavar paced his command bridge, his face lined with exhaustion and fury. His officers waited for his word, their eyes darting nervously toward the massive human vessels ahead. "They think they can frighten us into surrender," Kavar growled. "But we are the Empire. Our blood built the stars. Humanity is a ghost trying to haunt the living." One of his captains hesitated. "Sir, their ships are not reacting to our scans. We can't find engines, reactors, or even energy cores." Kavar turned sharply. "Then stop scanning and start firing." His hand came down on the console and 1,000 streaks of light tore across space. The Empire's last fleet opened fire with everything it had. The beams struck the Aegis and its surrounding ships, but instead of explosions, the light simply vanished. The energy bent around the human hulls like water around stone, absorbed and dispersed in silence. On the Aegis, the bridge lights dimmed briefly as the shields flared. No one panicked. The humans didn't even raise their weapons. Hale watched the storm of fire fade against his screens. "Return frequency open," he said. A channel crackled to life. Hale's voice filled every Imperial ship, calm as the void itself. "Admiral Kavar," he said, "your empire is already dead. Don't make your people die with it." Kavar clenched his fists. "You don't get to lecture me, Terran. You abandoned this galaxy. You left us to pick up your ruins, and now you return to claim our home?" Hale's expression softened, almost sorrowful. "We didn't abandon you. We built you. The Empire rose because our technology survived. You ruled with our ships, our engines, our words. But you forgot the one thing we never did: humility." Kavar's reply was a roar. "Fire again!" Another wave of energy flared, brighter this time. It tore through the void, shaking smaller asteroids to dust. But again, the human fleet stood untouched. Then for the first time, the Aegis moved. It didn't fire. It didn't threaten. It simply advanced slowly, steadily. The dark hull reflected the faint starlight, glowing faintly gold around its edges. Every Imperial ship that targeted it found its systems freezing. Every missile drifted harmlessly off course. Within moments, the Aegis was less than 1,000 kilometers from Kavar's flagship. "Admiral," a trembling officer whispered. "They're right in front of us." Kavar stared out the viewport. The human ship filled the horizon, vast and unbroken. "Prepare for boarding," he said, voice shaking with rage. Then the Aegis sent another transmission, not a threat, but a single image. It showed a photo, grainy, ancient. A blue planet with white clouds and green continents. Earth. Beneath it, a line of text appeared in the Empire's language. "We gave you the stars. You turned them into chains." Kavar froze. For the first time, the fury in his eyes faded, replaced by something far older: shame. He sank into his chair, unable to speak. Around him, his officers stared at the image, their weapons dimming one by one. Aboard the Aegis, Ilara whispered, "He's breaking." Hale's gaze stayed fixed on the screen. "Let him." Then the Aegis opened its lower hangars. Thousands of small human vessels poured out, unarmed drones glowing like fireflies. They spread through Kavar's fleet, disabling weapons, stabilizing reactors, shutting down engines. There was no violence, only silence and light. The war ended without a sound. On Kavar's flagship, a soft tone rang across the bridge. Every Imperial console flickered, then displayed the same words: "Welcome home, descendants." Kavar stared at the message, his throat tight. "Descendants?" he whispered. Hale's voice echoed one last time. "Your empire was never our enemy. Only your pride was. Stand down and live." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Kavar slowly raised his hand and gave the order that ended an age. "Cease fire." The Imperial fleet powered down, their lights dimming like candles in the wind. Across the galaxy, sensors recorded the signal. One by one, other Imperial ships followed, lowering their weapons. The rebellion collapsed, not from defeat but from realization. On Solara Prime, Rin watched the broadcast from a public terminal. The image of the human fleet standing before Kavar's surrender filled the skies. People wept openly in the streets, not in fear but in relief. Children pointed at the ships and whispered, "The humans saved us." The Emperor, alone in his palace, watched too. His empire was gone, but for the first time in his life he didn't feel anger, only peace. "Perhaps," he murmured, "they were the gods we pretended to be." Aboard the Aegis, Hale turned to his crew. "Transmit to all sectors," he said. "The Empire is finished. Begin reconstruction protocols. Humanity doesn't rule this galaxy, it restores it." Ilara smiled faintly. "And what do we call this new era, Captain?" Hale looked at the stars, now quiet and golden. "The Age of Return." As the fleets dispersed, the galaxy took its first breath of peace in 1,000 years. No more empires, no more chains. Just the faint glow of humanity's ships drifting through the endless night. Guardians of a galaxy they had once lost and finally found again. The stars, once ruled by arrogance, now belonged once more to those who remembered where they came from. Humanity had not conquered. It had come home. The Age of Return began not with celebration but with silence. Across the galaxy, the endless hum of Imperial broadcasts faded, replaced by a stillness no one had ever known. Worlds that once lived under the shadow of Imperial banners now watched the skies filled with faint golden light, the glow of Terran ships drifting in calm formation. No war drums, no conquest, only quiet order. For the first time in centuries, the stars seemed peaceful. On Solara Prime, Rin walked through the Grand Plaza, where once the Emperor's hologram had towered, demanding loyalty. Now, the only image hovering above the marble pillars was a rotating emblem, a blue sphere surrounded by golden rings, Earth's old insignia. Beneath it, words glowed softly in every known language. Unity through memory. People gathered silently, unsure how to react. Some knelt, others wept, and a few simply stared upward, as though trying to remember something they had never known. In the heart of the Terran fleet, the Aegis had become the beacon of a new era. Its command deck buzzed with activity. Diplomats, engineers, and historians from hundreds of worlds came aboard to negotiate the transition from empire to alliance. Humanity was no longer a ghost. It was a living, guiding hand, reaching out not to rule but to rebuild. Captain Marcus Hale stood before the observation window, looking at the blue and white planet below, Solara Prime, once the jewel of the Empire. "They're afraid," said Commander Ilara Voss, stepping beside him. "They should be," Hale replied softly. "They've never known peace. They've only known command." Ilara studied the glowing cities far below. "And us, we've known silence for too long. Maybe this time the balance holds." A transmission came through the console. It was from the surface. Rin, the young officer who had once served the Emperor. She now led Solara Prime's Provisional Council under Terran oversight. Her voice was calm, steady. "Captain Hale, reconstruction teams have reached the old data vaults beneath the Imperial Palace. You'll want to see this." Moments later, the Aegis descended through the atmosphere, its enormous shadow casting golden light over the ruined palace grounds. Rin stood among shattered marble columns as the ramp lowered. Hale and Ilara stepped out, flanked by Terran guards. "This was their heart," Rin said quietly. "Every law, every lie started here." She led them through the cracked halls until they reached a circular chamber, lit by ancient holographic projectors. In the center, a single machine stood, old, rusted, yet still alive. A plaque at its base read, "Founding Archive, Year Zero of the Galactic Empire." Rin pressed her hand to the control pad. The machine whirred to life and a flickering hologram appeared, an old recording of a human man in worn-out armor. His voice was faint but clear. "To whoever finds this, we are what remains of Earth. We escaped the fire but not the memory of it. We build again not for power but to survive. If this new order forgets what we once were, may our descendants find this record and remember, humanity was never meant to rule. We were meant to guide." The room was silent. The Emperor's myth crumbled in an instant. The first Emperor had been human, a survivor who tried to save what little was left of mankind. Over generations, that truth had turned into legend, then pride, then tyranny. Rin looked at Hale, her eyes wide. "He wasn't a conqueror. He was one of you." Hale nodded slowly. "History always hides mercy behind power." Ilara stepped closer to the projection. "And now we have a chance to correct it." Outside, people began to gather around the palace ruins. They didn't come to protest or obey, they came to witness. For the first time, Terran and Imperial citizens stood side by side, watching the hologram replay again and again. Some reached for each other's hands. The truth had freed them more than any weapon ever could. Days turned into weeks. The Terran fleet spread across the galaxy, not as conquerors but as builders. Each human ship left behind drones that restored power grids, repaired orbiting stations, and planted new communication satellites bearing the insignia of Earth Command. Worlds once torn by war began to share resources again. Trade returned. Travel reopened. The galaxy started to breathe. But not all accepted peace so easily. In the forgotten outer sectors, small warlords and ex-Imperial officers refused Terran guidance. They claimed humanity would one day enslave them just as the Empire had. Among them, whispers began, of a remnant force hidden deep in dark space building something massive. Hale heard the rumors, but he didn't respond. Every shadow resists the light, he told Alara. Ours is not to destroy it, but to outlast it. On Solara Prime, Rin stood atop the palace balcony one evening, looking at the sky now free of banners. She touched the small metal emblem hanging from her neck, the Earth insignia given to her by Hale. For generations, she said softly, we feared the dark. But humanity didn't come from the stars. It brought the stars with it. Far above, aboard the Aegis, Hale received a new transmission from Terran High Command. The message was simple. Phase 3 authorization confirmed. The Great Restoration begins. Ilara turned to him, puzzled. Phase 3? Hale exhaled slowly, a faint smile crossing his face. The return wasn't just about reclaiming the past. It was about preparing for the next step. In the ship's command deck, holographic displays lit up with new coordinates, thousands of unexplored systems at the galaxy's edge. Old Terran beacons pulsed there, calling across the void. We left more than fleets behind, Hale said. We left our beginnings. He looked at the stars and added quietly, we've reminded them who we were. Now it's time to show them what we can become. The Aegis turned slowly toward the uncharted frontier, its hull gleaming with sunlight. Behind it, the rebuilt worlds of the former empire shimmered like jewels, each one carrying a piece of humanity's return. And somewhere beyond known space, faint signals answered, not from the empire, not from any known world, but from humanity's lost colonies, waking from centuries of silence. The message repeated in the ancient language of Earth, carried across the stars. We hear you, Terrans. The lost have awakened. Home is no longer a single world. It is the galaxy itself. Captain Hale smiled as the words echoed through the bridge. Then, he whispered, our true journey begins. The fleet accelerated, engines blooming with golden light, cutting through the dark like a sunrise after endless night. The Empire was gone. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had not just returned, and it had risen. The stars were quiet again, but the quiet was alive. In every sector, the old Imperial transmitters now carried a soft hum of Terran signals. Weather reports, traffic logs, broadcasts about rebuilding. Where once orders and fear had ruled, there was conversation. People were learning how to speak to each other without command codes. On Solara Prime, Rin woke before sunrise. She walked through the plaza and saw children chasing drones that hovered low to repair the marble steps. Terran engineers had rebuilt the city's power core in days. Food grew again in hydro terraces that had been empty for decades. It all felt impossible. She looked up at the sky where a single dark triangle glowed faintly gold. The Aegis, her breath caught. She remembered the first time she'd seen that ship, a shadow above a storm, and how fear had turned into awe. High above, Captain Hale watched the same sunrise from his bridge. The galaxy map stretched before him, dots of light marking systems now free. They're learning faster than I expected, he said. Ilara smiled faintly. They had centuries to dream of freedom. All they needed was proof it could exist. Hale nodded. And what about us? Do we know what comes after return? The question lingered. For months, the fleet had been following the plan: stabilize, restore, remember. But the newest signals from the edge of known space spoke of something else. Lost Terran colonies hidden in dark nebulae were answering the beacons. We hear you, the messages said. We survived. Hale ordered a slow course outward. The Aegis led a column of ships toward the unknown. As they passed the frontier, the stars grew thinner and colder. The space ahead was unmapped since the collapse of old Earth. Somewhere out there, entire human branches had evolved alone, forgotten by both Empire and fleet. Back on Solara Prime, Rin coordinated the new council. Cities were forming alliances, not empires. She spoke to miners from the Rim and scholars from the core, helping them share data through Terran relays. The idea of command was vanishing. When asked what government they now served, Rin smiled. "We serve the light between stars," she said simply. Weeks later, the Aegis reached the first beacon. It pulsed slowly in the void, a relic older than the Empire itself. The metal was pitted and scarred, yet the symbol of Earth was still visible beneath the dust. Hale ordered a connection. The voice that answered was human, but strange, deeper, shaped by centuries of isolation. "Terran fleet, you finally returned." Hale leaned forward. "This is Captain Marcus Hale of Earth Command. Identify yourself." "Station Genesis," the voice replied. "We never stopped building. We waited." A new light spread through the sector as dormant stations powered up one by one. Massive structures unfolded, rings of steel and glass orbiting a dim star. Human colonies, forgotten and self-sufficient, had turned into something vast. They had technology older and purer than even the Aegis. Hale stared, speechless. Humanity had not just survived. It had evolved. Alara whispered, "We thought we were the return. Maybe they're the continuation." Hale smiled slightly. "Then it seems humanity never left at all." Back in the core, Rin watched the first open transmission between Solara Prime and the outer colonies. Voices overlapped, old dialects, new greetings, laughter. For the first time in history, every human, wherever they had lived, could speak across the stars. Not everyone celebrated. In the cold remnants of the Empire, a few warlords still plotted. They broadcast threats, but no one answered them. Without followers, their power meant nothing. Even their soldiers began to walk away, choosing to rebuild rather than destroy. One evening, Rin stood before the council. "We spent ages learning how to rule," she said. "Maybe now we learn how to belong." Her words echoed through the chamber and out into the networks, replayed across thousands of worlds. Above, Hale sent the fleet's final message before they left known space. "To every world that remembers us, build, create, and forgive. The stars are wide enough for all our futures." The Aegis turned slowly toward the distant rim. The engines ignited with golden light brighter than any sun. As the ship disappeared into the dark, the galaxy glowed softly behind it. Millions of tiny worlds connected by new hope. Humanity had come full circle. From Earth to Empire, from silence to memory, from pride to peace. It no longer ruled the stars. It was the stars, endless, restless, reborn.